You love us. It makes sense. And I got that IRS check, which feels like a sign. And I think I know a sign when I see one. Oh! 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 Ew!
What's going on?
A bird did its business in my eye.
Better in your mouth, right?
You think you're funny?
Yeah.
Mary Cooper spends 9 seasons being called cruel, cold to Georgie, blind to Missy, obsessed with one son to the point where the other 2 basically raised themselves. And the easy read is, she picked a favorite. She loved Sheldon more. That's not what happened, not even close. What actually happened is simpler and somehow worse. She ran out. Not out of love, out of capacity. There's only so much of a person to go around, and one child in that house needed all of it, every single day, just to survive being who he was. So let's actually trace where it went. Not who does Mary love most? That's the wrong question. The right one is, where did her energy physically go, day after day, year after year? And what did that leave behind for the 2 kids who weren't Sheldon? Because once you follow the resource instead of the affection, the whole family rearranges itself in front of you. Start with the twin study. Researchers sit Mary down and show her data, real, documented, that Missy is lonely, overlooked, quietly suffering from growing up next to a sibling who absorbs every ounce of parental attention in the house. Mary sees it. Mary feels it. There's a real moment where guilt lands on her face. So what does she do with that guilt? Nothing. Caring was never in short supply. What ran out was the hours in the day to act on it. Watch the Professor Proton photo scene. Missy is crying. Real, unrelated grief. Sheldon needles her about it. She snaps, rips his photo. Who does Mary punish? Not the son who provoked her, the daughter who reacted. Not because Missy's pain doesn't register, because triaging Sheldon isn't even a decision anymore. It's reflex. It's just where whatever's left of her goes by default. Missy isn't unloved. Missy is on a budget she didn't set and can't override. Georgie gets something worse than neglect. He gets reassignment. Mary calls him dumb as soup, a line she uses so often about her other 2 kids that it hardens into flat fact around the house, a label she never once reaches for when it comes to Sheldon. But watch what the show actually does with him. Georgie builds a tire empire out of a teenager's hustle. After George Sr. dies, Georgie is the one holding the house together, managing money, managing Missy, managing a newborn, managing a grieving mother, while still basically being a kid himself. Mary never tells Sheldon any of this, not because she's hiding a compliment, because acknowledging what Georgie's carrying would mean admitting how much of the load has quietly shifted onto him, a shift she needed and never had the spare capacity to feel guilty about. Georgie doesn't get less love, he gets promoted to staff. So where does the rest of her go? Not into extremism, into survival. Long before George dies, Mary is already doing a second, invisible job, managing a son who says the wrong thing at church, at school, at the dinner table, every single day, with no manual and no backup. That's not a personality trait she's indulging. That's unpaid overtime, every waking hour. Then Missy nearly dies during the twins' birth. Mary makes God a promise, "Save my daughter, and I will change everything." Was that faith? Or was it the cheapest control switch available to an exhausted woman? Rules don't need energy to enforce. Nuance does. And nuance is exactly what she's out of. She isn't hollow yet, though. She takes in Mandy against her own church's judgment. She questions her pastor. There's a scene where Sheldon's explanation of gravity brings her back to faith through curiosity, not fear. That Mary still has something left to spend on things besides survival. Then, 2 things drain the account to 0. First, Pastor Rob. While Mary is tearing into George for getting too close to a neighbor, she's having her own secret closeness with a young pastor. The smoke breaks, the shared feelings, the parts of herself George doesn't get anymore. Call it romance if you want. It reads more like a woman looking for 20 minutes where nobody needed anything from her. George catches her laughing and smoking with Rob outside the church, after arriving to help chaperone for the night. Nothing gets resolved. It just gets buried. Then George dies. No warning. He says, "See y'all later," and walks out the door for the last time. Here's what actually matters for the math. George wasn't just a husband. He was the only other adult splitting the load. The moment he's gone, there's no backup left. So whatever reserve Mary had left for Missy, for Georgie, for herself, it doesn't just shrink. It disappears, because the one person sharing the job just did. Weeks later, Mary demands Sheldon and Missy get baptized immediately. She's frantic, crying, telling them she can't sleep unless she knows their souls are saved. She is a lifelong Southern Baptist. She knows, theologically, that forced baptism means nothing in her own denomination. It has to be chosen, personal, voluntary. She knows this isn't real by her own church's rules. She does it anyway. Because this was never about theology. It's about needing one controllable action in a life that just proved, violently, that she controls nothing. Sheldon agrees, not from belief, but because he loves her and can't stand watching her fall apart. He even wears a wetsuit to avoid germs. Missy refuses and runs out of the church in tears. And Mary reads Sheldon's compliance as proof the system works. A son's love, twisted into confirmation that rigidity produces results. That's the exact moment the ledger closes for good. From here on, whatever's left of her goes almost entirely into maintaining control over the one child whose needs never stop. And whatever's left over for Missy and Georgie is whatever's left, which by now is close to nothing. Mima tells the kids to just go along with it, assuming the intensity is temporary grief. It never fades, because nobody with the standing to say you've gone too far ever does. Mima moves in with Dale. Sheldon leaves for Caltech. Georgie starts his own family. Missy pulls away. Mary is left alone in an empty house with no one left to share the job with, and no one left to spend anything on except the one relationship that still has demands attached to it. By Big Bang Theory, Mary tells everyone George was a lazy drunk who cheated on her. Casually, constantly, like it's just a fact of her life. But we watched young Sheldon. Was George that guy? He turned down his dream job because Mary needed him to stay. He worked overtime, quietly, to buy Sheldon a computer. He coached football with real, unglamorous devotion. And the affair, the one that supposedly explains Sheldon's triple knock habit? Turns out it was George and Mary, together, Mary in a blonde wig, trying to spice up their own marriage. Sheldon never recognized his own mother. Nobody ever corrected him. So why rewrite a good man into a villain? Because a good man's death is unbearable when you never got to fix things with him. A cheater's death is survivable. What she's telling people isn't a lie, exactly. It's just the version of the story she can actually survive telling. Here's the asymmetry, laid bare. Her son is an atheist. His whole career contradicts her worldview. She forgives all of it instantly, flies across the country to look after him, sings him soft kitty, meets his mockery with patience every time. Georgie builds an empire. She still calls him stupid. Missy goes through a divorce. Mary barely shows up. She mocks other religions without blinking, things about Judaism, about Hinduism, that would be unforgivable from anyone else. So is that just hypocrisy? Not exactly. Sheldon is the one account she's been managing since before George died, since before the house emptied, since before she became someone she never planned to be. There's nothing left over to open a new account for anybody else, not even her other kids. So, was Mary Cooper cruel, or was she faithful? Neither. She was a woman with one enormous, permanent, unglamorous job, and not enough of herself left over once that job was done. She didn't box up those recruiter letters from Caltech and Princeton because she doubted her son. She boxed them up because letting him go meant admitting the job might finally be over. And she had spent so long being defined by it, she didn't know who she'd be without it. That's what was in this box. See you back in the attic.